On March 14, 2025, at exactly 9:40 a.m., a young oncologist with careful eyebrows and a silver pen in his breast pocket told me I had a mass in my left lung measuring 3.8 centimeters. He said it gently, as if softness could shrink it. The room smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee. There was a humming fluorescent light above us that flickered every few seconds, like it was nervous too. I noticed everything. When you are 72 and sitting in a gray vinyl chair with your CT scan glowing on a screen, you begin to notice small things. The crack in the tile, the smudge on the doctor's glasses, the way your own hands look thinner than you remember. "Mr. Whitaker," he said, folding his hands, "we need a biopsy to determine malignancy. But given the size and presentation, we must prepare for the possibility of cancer." Possibility. He slid a printed estimate across the desk. Biopsy. $12,400 before insurance. PET scan. $6,800. Surgical consultation. $3,200. I have always respected numbers. They don't tremble. They don't soften their tone. They just stand there and stare at you. My Medicare supplemental plan would cover 80%. The remaining 20% was my problem. I nodded. I have nodded through worse things. I nodded the day they told me my wife, Eleanor, wouldn't wake up from her stroke. I nodded when the funeral director handed me an invoice for $18,760 and asked if I preferred mahogany or walnut. Life reduces to paperwork. "I want the biopsy scheduled immediately," I said. The doctor seemed relieved. People think old men are afraid of decisive language. We are not. We are afraid of being pitted. When I stepped outside the hospital, the March air was cold and metallic. I sat in my 2018 Toyota Avalon, paid in full, 42,311 miles on the odometer, and stared at the steering wheel. I had $1,243,000 in my brokerage account at Fidelity, conservative investments, municipal bonds, dividend stocks, another $312,000 in a money market. The house in Brookfield, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, appraised last year at $782,000. No mortgage, no debt. Eleanor and I built that stability brick by brick. 43 years of accounting work. No vacations in Europe. No leased BMWs. Just steady contributions and compound interest. I took out my phone and called my daughter. Clara answered on the second ring. "Dad, everything okay?" Her voice had that breathless quality she uses when she's half listening. "I just left St. Matthew's," I said. "They found a mass." Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Oh my God, what does that mean?" "It means we'll know more after a biopsy." There was another silence. Not grief. Calculation. "When?" she asked. "Next Thursday, March 20th. "I'll come," she said quickly. "Of course I'll come. Mark too." Mark. My son-in-law has a handshake like damp bread and a habit of calling me sir, in a tone that suggests he is humor-inclined. "That's not necessary," I said. "No, Dad, it is." Within 20 minutes, she had created a family group chat titled Dad's Health Updates. She added Mark. She added my grandson Tyler, who is 19 and studies business at Ohio State. She added her sister-in-law for reasons unclear to me. By noon, I had 12 messages. Praying folded hands. "We're here for you. Stay strong, Dad." At 2:15 p.m., Mark texted privately. "Let me know if you need help organizing finances during treatment. Happy to step in." Organizing finances. I stared at that message for a long time. That evening, Clara arrived with chicken noodle soup from Whole Foods, $14.99 a quart, and a bouquet of white lilies that made my dining room smell like a funeral home. "You need to eat," she insisted, placing containers in my refrigerator. She moved through my kitchen opening drawers, inspecting expiration dates. "Dad, some of this canned stuff expired in 2023. "Canned goods do not expire," I said. "They outlive governments." She smiled thinly. Mark stood near the island counter, hands in pockets, surveying the room, the Persian rug, the antique clock, the oil painting Eleanor loved. "So," he began casually, "have you updated your estate documents recently?" There it was. "Why?" I asked. "Just practical," he shrugged. "In case things move quickly. Hospitals can be complicated." Clara shot him a look. "Mark, what?" "It's responsible." I walked to the pantry, took down 3 bowls, and set them on the counter with more force than necessary. My will was updated in August 2023, I said. After Eleanor passed, they both relaxed slightly. And the house? Mark continued. Still solely in your name? Yes. He nodded, filing that away somewhere behind his eyes. We sat at the table. Eleanor refinished herself in 1989. Clara kept reaching for my hand. Mark kept glancing at the framed certificate on the wall. My retirement award from Kessler and Brown Accounting, dated June 30, 2018. After dinner, as I carried bowls to the sink, I heard Clara whisper in the hallway. If it's advanced, we need to think long-term, she said. I know, Mark replied. The house alone could clear $750 easy. With his accounts, that's over $2 million total assets. Don't say it like that. I'm just being realistic. I stood very still, my hands submerged in warm water and soap. $2 million total assets. My life, reduced to a line item. They weren't crying. They were planning. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in Eleanor's old armchair, a wool blanket over my knees, and stared at the dark window. A street lamp cast pale light across the magnolia tree she planted 20 years ago. I thought about the biopsy. I thought about the word malignancy. But mostly I thought about the way my daughter's voice had shifted, from fear to logistics in under an hour. At 1:12 a.m., I opened my laptop. At 1:27 a.m., I emailed Harold Benson, my attorney of 15 years. Harold, we need to review my will immediately. Urgent, Thomas. Then I closed the computer and sat back. If they were already measuring the curtains, I would make sure they didn't like the fabric. Outside, the wind moved through the magnolia leaves with a dry, whispering sound. It almost sounded like applause. The biopsy was scheduled for March 20th at 7:30 a.m., which meant I had to stop eating after midnight night before. I stood in my kitchen at 11:47 p.m., staring at a slice of Eleanor's frozen apple pie I'd found in the back of the freezer, dated November 2024. Her handwriting still neat and slightly slanted on the foil. I didn't eat it. I wrapped it back up carefully and closed the freezer door like a man sealing evidence. Clara insisted on driving me to the hospital. She arrived at 6:10 a.m., 20 minutes earlier than necessary, carrying a stainless steel travel mug and a leather-bound planner. Mark followed behind her, holding his phone in front of his face like a shield. You shouldn't be alone today, she said as she adjusted the thermostat in my hallway without asking. It's a big procedure. It's a needle, I replied, not a coronation. Mark smiled politely. The hospital lobby was already awake. Coffee kiosk hissing steam. Volunteers in pastel vests arranging brochures. The television mounted above, reception murmuring about stock futures. I noticed the Dow was down 312 points. Interesting timing. They prepped me in a curtained cubicle that smelled faintly of bleach and lavender air freshener. A nurse with kind hands inserted and 4 into my wrist and explained the sedation process. Clara stood at my bedside, squeezing my fingers like I was 5 years old. Mark stepped outside to take a quick call. I watched him through the gap in the curtain, pacing near the vending machines. Yes, but we don't know staging yet, he murmured into his phone. The accounts are solid. Fidelity, mostly conservative positions. The house appraised at $782,000 last May. Pause. No, there's no mortgage. Another pause. Of course there's a will. I'm just saying we should be prepared. Prepared. The nurse asked if I wanted something to help me relax. I am relaxed, I said. The biopsy itself took 40 minutes. When I woke up in recovery, my chest felt tight and bruised, like someone had pressed a cold coin into my ribs. Clara's eyes were red. Whether from crying or lack of sleep, I couldn't tell. The preliminary pathology would take 5 to 7 business days. 5 to 7 business days. It's a curious thing how quickly time becomes transactional. That evening, Clara insisted we all have dinner together to stay positive. She ordered from Bellini's Italian on Main Street, $186.40 for takeout. Veal marsala shrimp scampi, a bottle of Chianti that Mark opened without asking if I wanted any. We should celebrate your strength, Clara said, raising her glass. Celebrate. I sat at the head of a table Eleanor and I bought from a closing sale in 1992. Solid oak. Paid $1,200 in cash. Still doesn't wobble. To Dad, Clara declared, for being proactive. We clinked glasses. Mine was filled with water. Halfway through dinner, Tyler arrived unannounced. Tall, sharp haircut, wearing a blazer that screamed internship interview. "Grandpa," he said, leaning down to hug me. "You look good." "I am good," I replied. He sat beside Mark. Within minutes, the conversation shifted. "So, Grandpa," Tyler began casually, twirling pasta around his fork, "have you thought about restructuring your portfolio in case you need liquidity?" Clara shot him a warning look. "Tyler." "No, it's fine," I said. "Go on." "Well," he continued, warming to his subject, "if there's aggressive treatment, you might want to reduce exposure to municipal bonds and move some capital into—" "Tyler," Clara said sharply. "What?" "I'm studying finance." Mark cleared his throat. "It's actually not a bad idea to review asset allocation during health transitions." Health transitions. I set my fork down carefully. "My portfolio returned 6.4% annually over the past 10 years, I said. "It has weathered 2 recessions and 1 pandemic. I think can survive my biopsy." Silence settled over the table like dust. Clara forced a laugh. "Dad's always been good with numbers." "Yes," I said. "Numbers are loyal." After dessert, tiramisu I didn't touch. Mark leaned back in his chair. "We've been talking," he said slowly, "about making things easier for you if treatment becomes intensive." "Easier how?" "Well," Clara interjected, her voice suddenly soft. "This house is big. For bedrooms, stairs. It might not be practical long-term." Practical. I looked around my dining room. The china cabinet Eleanor polished every Sunday. The framed photo of Clara at age 8, missing her front teeth and holding a science fair ribbon. The brass chandelier we installed ourselves. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "Just options," Mark replied smoothly. "The market is strong right now. Zillow estimates $805,000. "Zillow," I repeated. "You could sell," Clara added quickly. "Downsize. Maybe move closer to us. We could help manage everything." Manage? There it was again. "And my accounts?" I asked. "We just want to make sure there's no confusion," Mark said. "Power of attorney can simplify hospital billing, insurance claims." "Stop," I said quietly. The room froze. I folded my napkin with deliberate precision and placed it beside my plate. "You are discussing the liquidation of my life while I am still sitting at this table." Clara's eyes filled instantly. "She is good at that. Always has been." "We're just scared," she whispered. Mark nodded solemnly. "Scared of what?" I wondered. My illness, or the possibility that I might survive long enough to control my own money. After they left, I stood alone in the kitchen. The sink was full of dishes. The Chianti bottle was half empty. On the counter, Clara had left her planner open by accident. I glanced down. Written in neat blue ink under March 28th. Meet with realtor. Preliminary valuation. March 30th. Call a state attorney, if needed. If needed. I closed the planner gently and set it by the door for her to collect tomorrow. Then I walked into my study and opened my laptop. Harold had replied. "Thomas, come in Monday at 9:00 a.m. Bring all documents. We'll review everything." I leaned back in my leather chair, the one Eleanor always said was too stiff, and allowed myself a small, controlled smile. If they wanted to celebrate, I would give them something worth raising a glass to. But it would not be what they expected. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. On Monday, March 24th, precisely 8 to 52 a.m., I parked in front of Benson and Clark LLP, a narrow brick building wedged between a dental clinic and a tax preparation office that always smells faintly of burnt toner. Harold Benson has been my attorney since 2010. He is 74, which means he still uses a fountain pen and distrusts cloud storage. I respect both habits. He greeted me with a firm handshake. "You look irritated," he observed. "I am." His office hasn't changed in 15 years. Dark wood shelves, leather-bound volumes no one reads anymore. A framed photo of his grandchildren arranged like evidence. I laid out my documents on his desk. Brokerage statements, property deed, insurance policies, the 2023 will. "They're circling," said. He raised an eyebrow. "Who?" My daughter, my son-in-law, possibly my grandson, who believes municipal bonds are a moral failing. Harold allowed himself a thin smile. And what have they done? Nothing illegal yet, but they are preparing realtor meetings, power of attorney discussions, asset allocation suggestions over Ville Marcella. He leaned back. Diagnosis pending. Biopsy results due by March 31st. He tapped his pen against the desk. So they assume you're terminal. Yes. And are you? I don't know. He nodded once. Good. Uncertainty is leverage. I like Harold. We spent 2 hours reviewing every clause of my estate plan. The 2023 version was simple. All assets to Clara outright, with modest college trusts for Tyler and his sister, Emily. Harold read aloud from paragraph 4. I leave my primary residence at 1147 Brookfield Avenue to my daughter, Clara Whitaker Mills, in fee simple. He looked up. Still feel good about that? No. He didn't ask why. Options, he asked. I want to protect the principal. Not for Clara. For the grandchildren. Directly. He nodded again. Generation skipping trust? Yes. With distribution restrictions until age 35. Control retained by trustee? You. Harold smiled properly this time. And Clara? She receives nothing directly. A conditional stipend only if she remains uninvolved in trust management. Harold's pen scratched across yellow legal paper. And the house, he asked. I don't want it sold immediately. You want to live in it? Yes. And after? I hesitated. Sell it, I said. But proceeds go into the trust. We moved methodically through numbers. Brokerage, $1,243,000. Money market, $312,000. IRA, $418,000. Life insurance policy, $500,000 payout. Total estate value, approximately $2,455,000 before taxes. Harold adjusted his glasses. You're redirecting nearly all of it away from your daughter. Yes. He studied me for a moment. Is this anger? No, I said calmly. It is arithmetic. By 11:30 a.m., drafts were underway. He would finalize by Wednesday. Before I left, I added one more clause. If I become incapacitated, I said, no power of attorney granted to family members. Medical and financial authority solely to you. Harold didn't blink. Done. That afternoon, Clara called. Dad, we need to talk. About what? Mark spoke with a financial advisor this morning. Just hypothetically, if treatment costs escalate, we don't want you stressed. I'm not stressed. Well, we are. There it was again. She arrived at 5:15 p.m. alone this time. No soup. No lilies. She carried a folder. I printed some forms, she said, sitting at my kitchen table. I noticed she chose Eleanor's chair. These are standard durable power of attorney documents. It's just precautionary. I did not sit down. I already have representation, I said. Her face tightened. Who? Harold Benson. She exhaled sharply. Dad, Harold is old. So am I. That's not the point. Mark understands modern investment structures. Hospital billing systems are complicated. My account are not. She slid the folder toward me. If something happens suddenly. If something happens suddenly, I interrupted, I will be dead. In which case the will handles everything. She stared at me as if I had spoken obscenity. Why are you being so defensive, she asked. I am being observant. Silence filled the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. The clock above the stove ticked loudly, as if impatient with us both. Do you not trust us? She finally asked. I looked at her, really looked. Her hair was professionally highlighted. Her watch was new, Rolex stainless steel, perhaps $9,000 retail. Her nails immaculate. Clara, I said evenly, you scheduled a meeting with a realtor 4 days after my biopsy. Her lips parted. I saw it in your planner. Color drained from her face. That was just exploratory. Of course. We were thinking about what's best for you. For me, I repeated. Yes. And what percentage of the sale price were you hoping would cover? What's best for me? She stood abruptly. That's unfair. Is it? Tears welled instantly. You think I'm waiting for you to die? I said quietly, you are rehearsing. She grabbed the folder and stuffed it back into her bag. You're not well, she said, her voice shaking. This diagnosis is making you paranoid. No, I replied. It is making me precise. She left without hugging me. On March 26th, I received a notification from Fidelity at 10:03 a.m. Unusual login attempt detected. Location, Columbus, Ohio. Tyler's campus. I called customer service immediately. Lock the account, I said. The representative was calm and efficient. We can restrict external login access and require in-person verification for any structural changes. Do it. By noon, I had also transferred $400,000 into a newly established irrevocable trust account under Harold's oversight. The paperwork felt like armor. At 3:40 p.m., Mark called. Hey, sir. Just checking in. Checking what? Nothing, just how are you feeling? Protected, I said. Pause. Good, he replied carefully. That evening I cooked myself scrambled eggs and rye toast. Simple. Controlled. After dinner, I walked through the house, slowly. Touched the banister. Eleanor insisted on staining herself. Adjusted the framed wedding photo in the hallway. They thought I was fading. They thought illness softened judgment. But clarity sometimes arrives wrapped in pathology reports. The biopsy results would come Monday. They were waiting for a verdict. So was I, only I had already begun issuing mine. The pathology report arrived on Monday, March 31st, at 8:17 a.m. I was buttering toast when my phone vibrated against the granite countertop. The caller ID read, St. Matthew's Oncology. I let it ring twice before answering. Mr. Whitaker, the doctor began, voice measured. The biopsy confirms non-small cell lung carcinoma. There it was, clean, clinical, no metaphors. Stage 2, possibly 3, pending additional imaging. Surgical candidate, aggressive but not hopeless. Treatment plan? I asked. Surgery followed by chemotherapy. We should act within 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Survival rate? I continued. With treatment, 5-year survival could be between 40 and 60%. Could be. I thanked him, ended the call, and finished buttering my toast. Cancer is an extraordinary clarifier. It rearranges the furniture in your mind. At 9:02 a.m., Clara called. She had clearly been contacted by the hospital's patient portal notification system. Dad, she breathed. I saw. Yes. Oh my God. There were real tears now. I could hear them, or at least the sound of them being performed. We're coming over tonight, she said. Everyone, we need to talk. Everyone. By 6:30 p.m., my driveway looked like a dealership lot. Clara's Lexus, Mark's Audi. Tyler's Honda. Even Emily, home from graduate school, had flown in that afternoon. They entered carrying food, wine, flowers. Sympathy in bulk. We thought we'd have dinner together, Clara said gently. Family meeting. The dining room was set formally. Cloth napkins, silverware polished. Eleanor's good china taken out of the cabinet. I hadn't used it since her funeral. I took my seat at the head of the table. Clara stood with a glass of Chardonnay. I just want to say, she began, voice trembling in practiced intervals, that no matter what happens, we're all here for Dad. Glasses lifted. To Dad. I raised my water. To timing, I replied. A few uncertain smiles. Dinner was elaborate, prime rib, roasted asparagus, truffle mashed potatoes. The kind of meal one prepares when expecting an announcement. Halfway through, Mark cleared his throat. We've been discussing logistics, he said. If surgery is within 3 weeks, recovery could be extensive. Yes, I said. So we should streamline things. Make decisions early. Clara nodded vigorously. We don't want you stressed. I'm not stressed. Tyler leaned forward. Grandpa, have you finalized the state updates? The audacity was almost refreshing. Yes, I said calmly. All 4 pairs of eyes sharpened. Mark's fingers tightened around his wine glass. And, he prompted lightly. And what? Have you made changes? Clara asked, trying to sound casual. Yes. Silence felt like a dropped curtain. Mark inhaled slowly. We should probably all be aware of your wishes. Just in case. Just in case. I dabbed my mouth with a napkin. You're right, I said. We should. Clara blinked. She had an expected agreement. I reached into my jacket pocket and withdrew a sealed envelope. Harold had prepared copies that morning. I thought transparency might ease your minds, I said. Emily shifted uncomfortably. She has always been quieter than the rest. Clara set down her glass. Dad, you don't have to do this tonight. I insist. I slid the envelope across the table. Mark opened it. His eyes scanned the first page, then the second. His posture changed first. Then Clara's face followed. What is this? She whispered. It is my updated will, I said. Tyler leaned over his father's shoulder. Generation Skipping Trust, he read aloud. Emily covered her mouth. Clara's voice shook. Dad, this says the estate, almost all of it, goes into a trust for Tyler and Emily. Yes. With Harold Benson as trustee? Mark added sharply. Yes. And I received nothing directly? Clara's tone cracked. You receive an annual conditional distribution, I said evenly, contingent upon non-interference with trust governance. The room went very still. That's not fair, Tyler blurted. Life rarely is, I replied. Mark placed the papers down carefully. Sir, this feels reactionary. Reactionary to what? To stress, to fear. No, I said quietly, to observation. Clara's eyes were red now, not decorative red, but furious red. You're punishing me. I am protecting capital. For what? She demanded. For the generation that has not yet scheduled realtor meetings before pathology results. The words hung in the air like a snapped wire. Emily looked at her mother. You did what? Clara stood abruptly. We were trying to help him. By appraising his house? Emily shot back. Mark rose too, voice tightening. This is unnecessary hostility. No, I said calmly. This is clarity. Clara's hands trembled. So that's it? You cut me out because we discussed practicalities. I cut you out, I corrected, because you celebrated preparedness before survival. The word landed heavily. Tyler slammed his palm on the table. This is insane. Sit down, I said without raising my voice. He did. I stood slowly. I am not dead, I continued. I am not incapacitated, and I am not inventory. My chest ached faintly under the bandage from the biopsy site, but I remained steady. I will undergo surgery, I said. I will endure chemotherapy, and I will make decisions while conscious. Clara began to cry openly now. You don't trust me anymore. I looked at her for a long moment. Trust, I said softly, is not inherited. It is maintained. The silence that followed was not grief. It was recalculation. Mark gathered the papers carefully, as if they might explode. This isn't over, he said. No, I agreed. It's just properly documented. One by one they left. No hugs. No lingering at the doorway. The house felt quiet again. I stood in the dining room alone, the good china still on the table, wine glasses half full. Outside, the magnolia tree moved gently in the April wind. They had expected a eulogy rehearsal. Instead, they received a reading. And for the first time since March 14th at 9:40 a.m., I felt something resembling control return to my lungs. Surgery was scheduled for April 18th at 6:00 a.m. Left upper lobectomy. Estimated hospital stay, 5 to 7 days. Estimated out-of-pocket cost after insurance, $27,400. I paid the hospital deposit on April 10th. Wire transfer. Clean. Immediate. No assistance required. Clara texted occasionally after the dinner confrontation. Short messages. How are you feeling? Let me know if you need anything. I replied politely, briefly. Mark did not text at all. On April 15th, 3 days before surgery, Harold called. There's been contact, he said. From whom? Your son-in-law. Of course. He requested confirmation that the will you distributed is the final executed version. And I informed him that estate documents are not open to negotiation. I allowed myself a small exhale. Did he threaten anything? No, but he asked about contestability. There it was. He believes I was coerced? I asked dryly. He suggested you may be under medical duress. I laughed. Actually laughed. Cancer is not dementia, I said. No, Harold agreed. But it makes relatives imaginative. The night before surgery, I did something deliberate. I invited them all back. Clara hesitated on the phone. Dad, after last time? All the more reason, I replied. I'd like dinner together before the hospital. They arrived at 7:00 p.m. subdued this time. No extravagant food. Clara brought a casserole. Mark carried a folder again. Tyler and Emily followed quietly. We sat at the dining table without ceremony. I wanted to speak plainly, I began. Mark straightened immediately. Clara folded her hands. I will undergo surgery Friday. There are risks, not insignificant ones. No one interrupted, but I will not enter that hospital with unresolved assumptions hanging in the air. Mark slid his folder forward. We've consulted counsel, he said carefully. Just understand options. Options for what? In case of incapacity, he replied. We believe the recent amendments were influenced by emotional distress. Clara winced at the phrasing. I see, I said. Tyler avoided eye contact. Emily looked embarrassed. I stood slowly and walked to my study. When I returned, I carried a smaller envelope. This, I said, placing it on the table, is a letter from my oncologist confirming full cognitive competence as of April 12th. I slid another paper beside it. And this is a notarized video statement recorded yesterday in Harold's office. Mark's jaw tightened. In it, I continued, I describe in detail my reasoning for every modification. Clara stared at me. You plan for us to fight you, she whispered. I plan for probabilities, I corrected. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it again. You think we're vultures, he said finally. I think, I replied evenly, that you began dividing assets before confirming my death. Silence. The refrigerator hummed again. That familiar mechanical witness. I was scared, Clara said suddenly, voice breaking for real this time. I didn't want to lose you. Then you should have spoken about losing me, I said gently. Not about listing price per square foot. Her shoulders shook. Emily reached for her mother's hand. Tyler finally spoke. Grandpa, we weren't trying to steal anything. No, I said calmly. You were trying to secure it. He swallowed. That's not the same. It is when the owner is still breathing. The air in the room felt heavy, but not explosive. Something quieter was happening. Recognition. I built this estate over 43 years, I said. Not for status. Not for leverage. For stability. I looked at Clara. But stability is not achieved by anticipating my funeral like a quarterly earnings report. Mark shifted uncomfortably. You've protected the grandchildren, he said. Fine. But why cut Clara out entirely? I did not cut her out, I replied. I removed direct control. Clara wiped her eyes. You don't trust me with money. I considered that carefully. I do not trust urgency, I said. Surgery day arrived gray and cold. They all came to the hospital. Clara held my hand again, this time without agenda. Mark remained quiet. Before they wheeled me into the operating room, I looked at them one last time. If I don't wake up, I said calmly, everything is already decided. Clara flinched. But if I do, I continued, we begin again. Without calculators. The anesthesiologist asked me to count backward from 10. I reached 7. I woke to light and pain, but also air. Clean, deliberate air entering lungs that had been partially rearranged, but not defeated. The surgeon visited on April 19th at 11:15 a.m. Margins are clear, he said. No lymph node involvement detected so far. Stage 2. Operable. Treatable. 5-year survival odds had just improved dramatically. Clara cried again, this time without witnesses beyond hospital curtains. Mark squeezed my shoulder awkwardly. Tyler looked genuinely relieved. Emily kissed my forehead. I watched them carefully. Gratitude is different from anticipation. You can see it in the posture. 3 weeks later, after discharge and the beginning of chemotherapy, Harold visited my home. Given your prognosis, he said, adjusting his tie, we can leave everything as structured. Yes, I replied. Any revisions? I looked around my living room. The magnolia outside was blooming fully now. No, I said, let them grow into it. Harold nodded. After he left, Clara stayed behind. She stood in the doorway of my study. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For what? For thinking in advance of you. I studied her face. I am not a liability on a balance sheet. I said softly. She nodded. I know that now. Outside, spring sunlight filtered through the leaves Eleanor planted decades ago. They had celebrated preparedness before grief. They had read the will expecting inheritance. Instead, they read restraint. And I was still alive to watch them learn the difference. Chemotherapy began on May 6th at 8:00 a.m. in a reclining vinyl chair that cost the hospital $3,200 and felt like something bought on clearance. The infusion room had 12 stations separated by pale curtains. There was a coffee machine that produced liquid resembling regret. I brought my own thermos. The first session lasted 4 hours and 12 minutes. I timed it. When you have cancer, you measure everything. Time, side effects, expressions on your daughter's face. Clara drove me. She did not mention the will. Not once. She held my coat when I felt cold. She argued gently with the billing desk when a $1,870 administrative infusion fee appeared twice on the invoice. She insisted it was an error. For the first time in weeks, she argued on my behalf, not against my autonomy. That matters. Mark accompanied us to the second session. He sat quietly scrolling through market news but did not comment on my portfolio. When the nurse explained potential neuropathy in my hands, he looked genuinely unsettled. You'll still be able to write, he asked. I can still sign checks, I replied. He gave a short, embarrassed laugh. The house remained mine, solid, undisturbed. No realtor signs on the lawn. No for sale listings quietly drafted. Tyler called one evening. Grandpa, he said, voice less polished than usual. I'm sorry about the login attempt. I let the silence stretch just enough. I was curious, he added quickly, not malicious. Curiosity is healthy, I said. Access without permission is not. He swallowed. I didn't realize how it looked. Most people don't, I said. He began asking about the trust, not how to access it, but how it worked. Distribution schedules, trustee authority, investment philosophy. This time I answered, if he is to inherit responsibility, he will understand structure first. Emily visited often. She brought books, real books, hard covers. She sat with me in the afternoons when chemotherapy, fatigue, pressed like wet sand on my chest. I think you scared them, she said once. I intended to, I replied. She smiled faintly, but I think you also scared yourself. That one landed. Perhaps she was right. Cancer has a way of stripping postures, mine included. By June, my hair had thinned noticeably. I shaved it clean. It felt honest. On June 22nd, I received updated scans. No metastasis detected. Surgical margins remained clear. Chemotherapy effective. The oncologist allowed himself a small smile. We continue treatment, he said. But this is promising. Promising, not cured, not safe, but promising. That evening, Clara insisted on cooking dinner. Not catered, not expensive. Roast chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes the way Eleanor used to make them, with too much butter. We sat at the same oak table. No speeches, no folders. Halfway through dinner, Clara looked at me. I was afraid, she said plainly. Of losing me? Yes, and of losing stability. There it was, honest at last. Those are not the same thing, I said. No, she replied. Mark set down his fork. I've built my career around contingency planning, he admitted. Risk mitigation, asset protection. I treated you like a portfolio. And now, I asked. He hesitated. Now I see you're the principal, not the yield. It wasn't poetic, but it was accurate. Tyler cleared his throat. I want to intern with Harold next summer, he said. Learn estate law. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I realized something, he continued carefully. We were all calculating outcomes. You were calculating legacy. That word hung in the room like something heavier than money. Legacy, not inheritance, not liquidation. Legacy. After dinner, Clara helped wash dishes. She did not open planners. She did not discuss property values. When she finished, she stood beside me at the sink. I don't need a house, she said quietly. I know. I don't need control. I know. She nodded once, as if confirming something internal. Outside, the magnolia tree was in full bloom. White petals scattered across the lawn like deliberate snowfall. Eleanor planted that tree in 2004, after surviving her own cancer scare. Benign, it turned out. But she said, planting something permanent felt like insurance. She was right. In July, Harold visited again. Still satisfied, he asked. Yes. No amendments? Not yet. He studied me. You look stronger. I am, I replied. Cancer rearranged my lung. It also rearranged my family. They celebrated my illness as an event to prepare for. They read the will expecting reward. Instead, they found boundaries. And I found something I had nearly surrendered in the quiet hum of hospital rooms and whispered real estate appraisals. Authority. Not over money. Over myself. The trust remains in place. The house remains mine. The accounts remain untouched. I will live here as long as my lungs allow. And when the final reading comes, whenever that may be, it will not be an ambush. It will be a conclusion. Because they no longer wait for my death to organize their future. They wait for my voice. And as long as I am breathing, it is the only document that matters.